Okay, hi, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar on Sharperlight. So, very quickly, my name is Richard Hughes. I'm Director of Technology and Services here at Eclipse, and this session was organized by Emma Mitchell. So, in terms of the agenda this afternoon, what we're going to do is we'll just spend a few minutes just quickly going through Sharperlight, just to understand a little bit about what is Sharperlight as a product, what are the key objectives of the tool, what do we use it for, and what benefits can we gain from using it. We'll then go into a solution demonstration where I'll just quickly run through some of the key functionality in the Sharperlight query builder, and we'll take a look at publishing some queries to the web. And then finally we'll wrap up with a Q&A session where you'll have the opportunity to answer any questions, to ask any questions rather, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. Okay, great. So Sharperlight, what is it? Well, Sharperlight is a product that we started working with here at Eclipse a couple of years ago. It's been very, very successful for us, and it's really a business intelligence tool, but at the same time it's what we call, Sharperlight themselves call simplified intelligence, and I'll explain why we use that terminology in a second. But just to sort of set the scene, to think about a little bit about the background, when we look at why people would want to implement something like Sharperlight, there are a number of challenges we often come across talking to customers. And actually, when we first saw the Sharperlight product here at Eclipse, we were very excited about it because we knew that this was something that could really have a big impact on a lot of our customers. So the questions, some of the problems we come across very, very often is that no matter how comprehensive your ERP solution is, and no matter what that is, whether it's Microsoft, it's an Infor product, it's SAP, or something else, the ERP solution is typically not the only key system within use in the organization that contains relevant information for reporting, and specifically financial reporting. So many organizations continue to rely on third-party or bespoke legacy data systems that have been developed in-house, and historically it's been very difficult to get information out of these quickly and easily, and then combine that with information from other systems, whether that's the ERP or something else. So Sharperlight is something that can certainly help in that respect. So if you can imagine being able to harness all of that data that's sitting in all of those different systems across the entire organization. So if we had a tool to do that, then that would hopefully be something very, very powerful. So no matter where it's stored, what platform it's on, effectively what we're saying with Sharperlight is that if it's got a database and there's information in there, we can access it and we can give you access to that data very, very quickly. So out of the box, Sharperlight will provide access to the key ERP systems in the marketplace today, whether that's Infor-related financial systems, Microsoft Dynamics, SAP Business One, and many, many more. Also works with things like practice, purchasing, some contract management solutions. We have property management solutions in the hotel industry. So out of the box, it works with quite a few things already. But interestingly, it gives you the ability to access any custom data source, and the custom data source would be one of those bespoke insurance systems you maybe have. Maybe you have a bespoke contract management system, a publishing system, a media contacts database, a CRM system, anything that's been developed specifically for you, or traditionally a system that's been difficult to get information out of. With Sharperlight, we can do that. And the key things about Sharperlight, and I think these are these are definitely areas where we've had success with the product, where we've implemented it for our customers. It's easy to use, it's quick to implement, it works across the entire organization, and it's a really, really powerful business intelligence solution. And it makes all of that data available instantly. So with one report or even one query, what we can do with Sharperlight is we can take all of that information that's sitting in different locations, different companies, different systems, and we can combine that into a single, into a single query or into a single report. But at the same time, without losing the ability to drill down to the underlying transactions. And we can do all of that, and we can put it in Excel, or we can publish it to the web, and we can create dashboards. So we can create some very, very compelling reports, KPIs, really good-looking data presentation that has very powerful functionality such as drill down and drill through, but we can do that with a tool set that's very quick to implement and easy to use, and that's really where Sharperlight is very, very successful. So what it does is it allows people to act upon the data they're seeing in real time, and just to take that a step further, we also have the ability to write back information either from Excel or from within the web browser to one of those underlying target systems, and that data can be referential data, or it can be transactional data. So we could take things like an upload of budget information, or we can write that back into a finance system either from Excel or from a form sitting in the browser, or we could do the same with exchange rates or any kind of information that we can report off of. We can potentially send that information back into one of those underlying systems as well. So this is why we came up with this term, simplified intelligence. So it's business intelligence, simplified, because traditionally when you talk to customers and we talk about business intelligence projects, quite often these have have a reputation for being very sort of long, drawn-out projects within an organization. They require very specialized skill sets, but Sharperlight actually allows you to get a lot of the same results quicker, and using technology that people working in areas such as finance, working in the procurement department, they're familiar with these tool sets, so we don't need to have any sort of specialized developer knowledge to be able to get to grips and to access that data. So what Sharperlight is really all about is giving you access to your data no matter where it sits, being able to combine that data from multiple sources into a single place, and being able to make that entire process really, really simple and quick to get up and running. So very quickly, let me just explain a couple more things. So with the way that happens, the way that we simplify all of these back-end database systems, fundamental to the way Sharperlight works is this concept of what we call a data model. So a data model basically takes away all of this complexity. You can think of it as a translation layer. So the data model is something that sits between the complexity of a database, but then allows that to be presented to the end user in a really simple, easy-to-use way. So the data models have already been developed for all of those systems that we talked about before, and then the ability to write your own data models is something that Sharperlight again gives you out of the box. So if you have a custom custom data source, you have a bespoke system that you need to get information out of, and to date you haven't been able to do that, then a custom data model with Sharperlight allows you to actually write the data model yourself, or maybe together with some assistance from Eclipse. We can write the data model for you, and once that data model has been written, you can then access information in that system in exactly the same way as you would with any other product within Sharperlight. So it means that data is then accessible, people can write queries against it, they can publish those queries to the web, they can create dashboards, etc. So the data model is basically what makes all of this, allows all of this to happen, and is what takes away that underlying complexity. So if we just quickly look at what is in the Sharperlight product suite, so there are some key elements there, the most fundamental of which is the query builder. So the query builder is pretty much the starting place for everything that happens within Sharperlight. So it's where we create our queries, obviously, it's where we can save queries, publish those queries, and it's a common user interface for the entire product suite. It's drag and drop, and you can access all of your data from all of your products within this single user interface. We can also use things like custom tables, custom fields, so maybe if there's a data model that already exists for a product that you're using, so maybe that's Info Sun Systems or Microsoft Dynamics, but within that data model there are certain areas of the system that have not yet been made available, or maybe you have some custom add-ons for that system. Again, we can make those accessible through Sharperlight by using what we call custom tables and custom fields. So this is something that's not part of the standard product, but you want it to appear to the end users creating the reports as if it was part of the standard product. Again, we can do that very, very easily using some of this extension functionality with custom tables and custom fields. We also have the Explorer. So the Explorer is a standalone data explorer where we can use this for drilling down, drilling through, navigating through data, and again we can access that from Excel or from within the desktop. We can actually also embed that, because it's all written in .NET, we can actually embed that into things like Microsoft reporting services as well, so you can actually build queries using the Sharperlight query builder, but then actually have those run inside a Microsoft SSRS environment. So if you've got products that use SSRS, but you don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to write reports in Microsoft reporting services, you can again use the simplicity of Sharperlight to do that, but then just have those queries embedded in Microsoft reporting services. So again, it's about making it all easy. Microsoft Excel, we have an add-in for Excel that runs with any version of Excel from 2003 to 2013, and again we can use that to report off of data in any system, and we can use that to write data back into any system. Fully supports things like lookup dialogues, automatic recalculations, so you can create queries, but then if you need to manipulate the data further in Excel, you can very quickly do that. The web channel is where we have, where we create things like dashboards. It's a secure interface for accessing and publishing those queries that we've written using the query builder. So what this means is that any query that we write, we can very quickly publish that to the web, so that can be published to a portal that can be viewed in any browser. And so what this means is that you don't need to give people access to the the Sharperlight report writing tools, or you don't need to give people access to the underlying systems that contain the data you're reporting on. If you have maybe people within the organization who just need to look at some key performance indicators, maybe there's some standard metrics that they need to look at every day, you can write the reports with Sharperlight and then just publish those queries to the web, and anybody can access those, or anybody who's been given access to view those queries can access those using any browser, whether that's Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer. And again, within the web channel, if you've built into your queries things like drill down and drill through, again, that's fully accessible from the web as well. So using no special technology, you can just go into the web browser, you can run a report that's been published, you can drill down, you can drill through, you can pivot table that data inside the browser. So again, it's a very, very powerful tool, and it's one of the most successful elements of the Sharperlight product suite, is being able to give access to that information to anybody, anytime, who needs to have access to it. If we can also do things like page-based reporting. So if you have certain reports that require a very specific layout, so maybe things like invoices or remittance reports, again, we can use the simplicity of the Sharperlight query builder to create those reports. But if they need to have a very specific format, maybe need to be output as a PDF or as an HTML or some other kind of format, we can do that. So again, we can use the simplicity of the query builder to create the initial design, but if we need to apply some very specific formatting, maybe some charts, maps, sub-reports and sub-queries, we can do that, and then we can output those reports on a schedule to a PDF, for example. And the publisher, of course, is where we take everything that we've written in Query Builder and then we make it available to the web channel. And again, we've got full security and full versioning in history, so you can see exactly changes that have been made to any individual query, and you can even define security right down to the individual query level. So even not just in the concept of a report, but even within a report you may have different areas or different queries within a single report that different people need to have access to. You can be very, very granular in terms of the security that you define within Sharperlight. So there's a full audit trail and full user group access to control on anything we do in Sharperlight. And of course the dashboards, as I said, within the web channel, the dashboards are where we can actually take some of that data from all of these different systems that's been combined, and then we can present that to people in a very nice user interface. We can use all the sort of standard things like table reports, charts, bar graphs, pie charts, scatter graphs, pretty much any sort of graphical representation. We can do that with Sharperlight. And again, that's live optimized data, so it doesn't require any sort of overnight process to refresh the data. Everything we do in Sharperlight happens live, so anytime that page is refreshed, the information within those dashboard controls is going to be refreshed as well. And because it's all written in standard HTML, there's no sort of third-party technologies in there, Silverlight, Flash. That means, again, you can run that on any device, any browser on any device. So that could be run on, obviously, a desktop PC, but it could also be run on, an iPhone, an iPad, or a tablet, or some kind of Android device. We can make all of that information available, as I said, anytime, any place. And then finally, the Datamodel Studio. So this is for those customers who want to be able to take things a step further and go beyond the out-of-the-box data models that come with the system. So if you have one of these bespoke systems you'd like to access, so the Datamodel Studio is basically the development environment that allows you to write your own data models to access data in those custom data sources. Now the great thing is, again, there's no extra cost, so when you buy Sharperlight you basically get everything, so there's no sort of hidden costs. You don't need to have special developer licenses to be able to do any of this. All of the the development tool studio ships with the system, and again, it can be it's relatively easy to use, and it can be used by first-time users all the way up to technical authors. And then finally we have a functionality called materialized queries. So materialized queries are very similar in some senses to, you may have heard terms like data warehousing or data marts, but materialized queries are basically ways of consolidating data, again, from multiple sources, but doing that and storing that as a snapshot in a database that can be refreshed automatically. So what this is very useful for is maybe where you have very large amounts of data that are coming from lots of different data sources, and you just want to be able to present that as one database to the end user, and you want to have that data refresh automatically on a schedule. We can do that. But it's also very good for maybe creating reporting snapshots. So maybe in your ERP system, at I don't know, month end or quarter end, you want to take a snapshot of whatever data was in there for that quarter end reporting. You can use the materialized queries to basically create a reporting snapshot of whatever is in your underlying product, and then you can archive that off. So you can do things like historical archiving, and so you can over time do different comparative point in time reporting, looking at different historical snapshots. It's also very good for doing things like budgets, consolidating data, and again, it's a very powerful tool, and this again just comes with the product at no extra cost. And then finally we have the ability to write back. So Sharperlight is a two-way interface between whatever data source we choose to connect to. So this is basically writing data back from Excel, or writing data back from forms that we've set up within the browser. So we can send information back into any data source using Sharperlight as well. That information, of course, isn't just pumped into a database. It's validated. So we use whatever the rules are of the underlying data source or the underlying system. So we can make sure that any data we send back in, of course, is validated and actually conforms to the correct data schema for the system that we're trying to write into. Okay, so probably a good time to switch over and take a look at the product itself. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so just very quickly, if we just go through and we have a look. So the first thing to take a look at, of course, is the query builder. So the query builder, we said, is pretty much the heart of everything we do in Sharperlight. It's the starting place for any query, and it's designed to be a very simple, easy to use user interface, get people up and running, being able to query their data sources quickly. And that's what we're going to do now. So we have in Query Builder, the ability to create different kinds of reports, summary reports, detailed listing reports, reference links, lookups, aggregations, so on and so forth. And if we look in the products, you can see here you can report on all sorts of different things. So as I mentioned, maybe Microsoft Dynamics GP. You can report on P2P systems. You can report on all sorts of different things. So we've got a couple of different ones set up in here. So let's just take Dynamics GP as an example. So depending on the product that we've chosen to report on, there may be different ways of organizing the data within that system. So some systems may have the concept of a business unit, or the concept of a company, or an organization, or an entity. So depending on what it is, we maybe need to select select an entity or a company first. Having done that, we can then see within the data model that's been defined for this product, we've got a whole series of different things that we can report on from, in this case, financials, receivables, sales, payables, inventory, fixed assets, whatever that may be. Maybe in a different system, we've got a different view of things. So in the P2P system, we can go in, we can take a look at purchase orders, requisitions, invoices, goods receipts. But we could combine information from both of those different sources together in one report. So maybe if we wanted to take a look at invoices that have been posted to the general ledger, but then maybe pull back the purchase order number from the P2P system, or we wanted to do some kind of reconciliation to look at invoices that have not yet been posted from the purchasing system that we were expecting to receive in the general ledger, again, we could do a reconciliation report and we could combine information from those two systems very, very quickly. So let's just take a look at some general ledger transactions. So if we have a look in here as an example. So again, depending on what the underlying data source is, the things that appear at the top here may be slightly different, but the concept is exactly the same in every product. So we have at the top here what we call a filter window. So a filter is just a way of filtering or determining, setting criteria that will impacts what data is pulled out from this product, in this case Microsoft Dynamics GP. So we can we can basically filter on any field that's in the database, but by default we maybe got to filter on a couple of different things. So maybe we need to select a period range, or we can say all periods. Maybe we need to select a type of account or a range of accounts, and again we can just very quickly double click, have a look at that. And then in the selection list, this is where we have a list of all of the fields that are available to report on. So you can see common fields in here. What you can also very quickly do is, if there's something you report on time and time again, maybe like amount, you can very quickly just right click, you can add that to your favorites. You can also, so if you wanted to just add particular item to your favorites, if you add that to the favorites, that then jumps up to the top so you can find it again very quickly. If you're not sure where exactly something is in this hierarchy, again you can search for it very quickly. So if you just type in amount, I can see straight away any field that features the word amount. Maybe if I was looking for account, I could do the same, and the system would then just give me any of the fields that contain the word account. So again, it's all geared towards the end user, and the idea is to allow you to get to the information you need very, very quickly. So let's just say we want to give a summary of the balances of all the accounts broken out by period. So we're just going to take the account number, the account description, and the period year values, and we're looking at all periods, all accounts. Let's just get rid of that. And what we can do in Sharperlight is before we actually do anything with this, we can even preview the data. So by previewing the data, we can see at a glance exactly what is going to come out. So if we then need to go back and make any changes to that, we can do that straight away before we save this. But it gives you the ability to very quickly extract information, to preview it, and then make any quick modifications to the query as you see fit. So very quick to create a query. Let's just do another one using a different system. So if we go in here and we have a look at let's just do some systems, for example. If we go in here, just have a look at the demo database. And what we're going to do, something similar, we'll do the account code. Let's just have a look at the description and the base amount. So we're just going to get a list of all of the accounts, the description of the account, and the balance of that account. And again, we're just going to go for all periods, all accounts. So again, I can very quickly preview that information, so I can see there straight away. The system will tell you, how many rows it's extracted and the time it took to do that. So that looks okay. But maybe I don't like this default description it's given me here, so I can very quickly, if I just change the description on that. So let's just call that let's just call that account name. So I can just do that in real time. If I then preview that again, the column name has changed. And let's say we also want to include some kind of drill down on this as well. So this is giving us the balance of all of the accounts for all periods. Let's say we want to maybe give somebody who runs this later on the ability to drill down by period. So what we can do, we can very quickly right click and we'll do a drill through. And let's just say quickly create a new drill. So this is going to be a drill by period. And what we're saying here is, whatever comes out of this parent query, we also want to be able to give the the breakout by accounting period as well. So we're just going to add the accounting period to the output list, and we'll just move that up there. So again, drag and drop. And what we want is we want this to be linked to the account code in the parent query. So we're just going to say on the filter here, take the output account code from the parent query and then use that as the basis for the drill through. So that's fine, so that's okay. And again, we can preview that very quickly. So if we just go back into there and we just preview the initial query, if I right click, I now get the ability to drill by period. So if I drill on that 11,000 line, I then get the breakout by period of the 11,000 account. Likewise, if I did the same on the 12,000, I get the breakout of the 12,000 account by period as well. So that's good. We like that. So what we're going to do is we maybe want to save that somewhere. So let's just have a look. So we could maybe put this in Excel. So I've developed this completely outside of Excel at this point. So what we can do very quickly is we can just copy this entire query to the clipboard. So if I just right click on here, say copy the clipboard, I can close that down, and then if I come into Excel, I've got my Sharperlight add-in in Excel, so I can very quickly just go in and do a new query in here. So if we just go in, and because I copied that, I can go in here, I can import from the clipboard, and I can then just paste in that query. So I don't need to recreate anything. It's very, very quick. I can just literally copy and paste queries between windows. So I've got that exact same thing. And if I just preview that again in here, it's going to give me the exact same results. Still got the drill down, so it's even copied the definition of the drill down as well, so that's all fine. So I'm just going to save that in here. That's all okay. And then we've got a query in our query manager. So let's say we want to output that somewhere. just give that a name. So that's going to be account balances. We just want to drop that into Excel somewhere. I can just literally drag it out of here, drop that into Excel, and it'll give me a table there. So you can see even from within Excel I can then do the drill down by period. And if I do that within Excel, then it's going to open up the Explorer window. So the Explorer window there is the window that's used for drill down. So I can drill down from within Excel. So if I needed to manipulate this data further, maybe combine it with something else in Excel, I can do that. But let's say I wanted to give, I wanted to publish this somewhere so that other people in the organization can access this report. Well, that's also very, very quick. I can just quickly come back into my Query Builder window, and what we can do from here is we've got the definition of our query, including the drill through. So if I just come in here and I say publish, what we're going to do is we're just going to publish this query. So I'm just going to say new. I'm just going to create a new published query, and when that comes up, again we'll just call this account balances with drill. So that's just the name of the query, and maybe we'll put that in a group called Sun Queries. So let's see. We could at this point define security on this, so we can determine that once this has been published to the web, only certain groups of people or certain users could have access to this query. We can edit the different layouts. So the default layout for this particular kind of query when it gets published to the web is going to be a table, but we could also change that to have it output as a chart, as a pivot table by default, as a PDF, or whatever that may be. And for each of those different output options, we then get a series of sort of pretty complex set of options for how that is then formatted once it's been output to the web. So we won't bother with any of that right now, but just I'll show you what this looks like in a second. So what you can also do is at the very simplest level, once you've published a query, the system will just generate a link for you, so you can very quickly, you could copy that, paste that into an email, and that would take somebody straight to the query in the browser. But probably what you normally want to do is you want to publish this to a particular area. Maybe you have an area of list or a list of published reports somewhere on the web, or maybe you want to put this into a dashboard somewhere. But at the simplest level, if it's just a very quick and dirty, you need to share this information with somebody. They don't need to have access to Sharperlight. They don't need to have access to Sun Systems in this case, or whatever it was we were querying. You could create this, publish it, send them a link in an email, and they can view exactly the same information directly in the browser. Okay, so we're just going to publish that. So there's our published query. So that's all fine. So if we just come out of here, and then let's just come out of here, and if we go into the web browser, so let's just go into Sharperlight. I'll just need to log in. Now we do fully support single sign-on, so people can log in and the system will log them in automatically based on their Windows login. In this particular case, I've just got separate usernames and passwords set up just so I can switch between different roles. Okay, so if I go into my list of published queries, I've got a whole bunch of stuff up here, so let's just have a look. Trying to remember what we called it, so let's just have a look. Account balances with drill, I think it was that one. So if we just go into that, so we can see when we open this up in the browser, I can choose how this works, but by default it's going to give me the prompts. So whatever we used as a filter in that query, it'll publish those as well. So potentially, you can change those. So you could just run the query for a different company if you wanted to, You can have it so that this automatically submits, or you may want to block the filters so that people can't choose different companies. But if we just run that, you can see again very, very quickly I get exactly the same report as I got in Excel. I just get that now in the browser, so I can change. I can say, extend that to 75 rows per page or whatever it is. And if I right-click on any of these, again I can get the ability to drill down. So that drill down that we built with that query, that's stored with that query for the duration of its life. So again, I can drill down by period, and I do that. I get the breakdown of the 12,000 as well. So very, very quickly you can see that it's very quick to just create a query using Query Builder. Maybe put in a bit of drill down. You can save that and you can publish that to the web where anybody can access it. So if we then take that a step further, what you can then do with that is you can start to build things like dashboards. So if we have a look at some example dashboards that we built here, this is for the purchasing system. So we can take that information, so we can take those queries and we can just output them as different graphical formats. So what we have here is we have a dashboard portal that is actually built up of a series of different tabs, and each tab essentially just contains a query that's been written using Query Builder. So we've got a query for invoices, we've got a query for top 10 suppliers by invoice value, and we've got a different query for the breakdown of supplier invoices by month. So they're just 3 different queries that were written using the standard Query Builder. But for the first one, we set the output type to be a table, and we can put in here, as you can see, things like subtotals. So instead of just having a list, we can have a subtotal at every change of invoice number. This particular one here, we said the output for that is going to be as a bar chart, and then this one down here, we said this is going to be a donut chart or a pie chart. So the dashboards themselves, again, are just built using the Query Builder. So once you build the queries, you just change the output type to be some kind of graphical representation, and then using the dashboard editor, we can just literally drag and drop those things into a dashboard. So you can, again, very, very quickly build something that's good to look at. And again, even on things like the, if you look at the graphs, the bar charts, anything to do with drill down, we can incorporate drill downs on the graphs, on the charts as well. But the important thing to remember is that all of this information was just written using that standard Query Builder interface. So we've got one here for invoices, we've got one for orders, expenses, expense claims, and again, we can change the filters on these. We can define, maybe looking at a different sets of companies. But you can see, hopefully, it's very, very quick to get up and running with Sharperlight. So, just to summarize, what the key point of Sharperlight is giving you access to your information, wherever that information may be, giving you the ability to report on that quickly and easily, combine information from multiple data sources, and then publish that information to the web where anybody can access it anytime and in real time as well. So there's no background processes required to refresh a data warehouse to be able to publish those dashboards. Whenever you go into that browser, you refresh that dashboard, that information is being extracted in real time. Okay, so that was a very, very quick overview of Sharperlight. What we're going to be doing is running some more detailed sessions on specific functionality within the product. But as an introduction, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the potential of the tool. And as I said, it's something. Well, we've been working with it now for about 2 years at Eclipse, but we've been very excited about it for a long time, and we've had a lot of success with it. So what I'll do now is I'll ask Emma to open up the lines for any questions, if there's any questions, and we'll try and answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Please can anyone let me know if you have any questions, either by raising your hand or by typing in a question on your keypad. Thanks. question has come in, Richard, from Navjeet, who would like to know, can you use in-house bespoke systems and Sharperlight?
Yes. So the answer to that is obviously yes. So basically, if it's got a database, and if it's a SQL database or it's an Oracle database or it's a DB2 database, as long as it's a sort of common database format, then we can use the custom data model functionality in Sharperlight to get information out of that system. So that's one of the main, one of the fundamental strengths of Sharperlight. It doesn't just work with out-of-the-box products. It's the ability to extend that over any system you may have, where traditionally it's perhaps been difficult to get reporting information out of that system. So if it's in a standard SQL database format, we can use Sharperlight to do exactly what I showed you, but on top of whatever that system is, and also combine that information with information from other systems.
Thanks. Ilse would like to know if extra data sources are charged separately.
Yeah, great question. So with Sharperlight, there's the data models basically come in two types. So we have what we call a commercial data model. So something like Sun Systems, Microsoft Dynamics, Practice is considered a commercial data model. So that's something that's already been developed by Sharperlight, and you buy. So the first, if you buy the product with a commercial data model, the first commercial data model comes with the product free of charge. So if you buy Sharperlight, you get the first data model free. So let's say you were using it with Sun, you'd get Sharperlight, you get the Sun data model free of charge. If you want additional commercial data models, you pay an additional one-off fee for each data model, and then anybody can access that additional data source. If you wish to develop your own data models, you basically pay once for a custom data model license, and the price of a custom data model license is 50% of what a commercial data model would cost. And once you've paid that for that custom data model license once, you can then use that to develop links to as many systems as you want. So if you had 50 bespoke systems, you would only pay for one custom data model license once, and then you could develop links to as many other systems as you wanted.
Thanks. Peter would like to know a bit more about pricing in general.
Yeah, so pricing in general, again, probably the best thing, I don't have the price list in front of me, but if we can catch up after Peter and go through some specific examples, but just in terms of how the licensing works, so that there are effectively two types of user with Sharperlight. One is what we call a full user. So a full user gets the developer, gets the basically can do anything, can access any of the tools, and there's a price for that, and that is based on concurrent users. If you have people who only need to consume data via the web channel, then there's a price for what we call web users, and the web users are obviously priced a lot lower than the full developer users. So it's all based on concurrent licenses, and interestingly for the web users, generally, even if let's say you have 200 people who need to access dashboard information in Sharperlight, it doesn't necessarily mean you need 200 web users, because the way Sharperlight uses the licenses is quite smart. It basically, the time it takes, the license is only used for the amount of time it takes to refresh that query. So if you've got a dashboard in a web page, the first time you go into that web page, Sharperlight will use a license to access whatever product it is getting that information from and refresh the page. But as soon as it's done that, it basically releases that license back into the pool of licenses. So what that means in real terms is you probably need about 25% of the actual number of users. So if you've got 200 users who need to access information via the web, typically you'd probably need about 50 web user licenses to do that, because you're not going to have 200 people all hitting refresh in the browser at exactly the same time. Yeah, I mean, definitely, Peter, if you want to go through some examples, I can send you a copy of the price list after this call, so that's no problem.
Couple more questions. Navjeet would like to know how long does it take to configure the system to databases for the initial setup?
Okay, so good question. So right, so again, these are just rough numbers. Obviously, the few variables involved, depending on how many machines you need to get installed and all the rest of it. But generally, we spend about a day on installation, getting the server set up, getting any client machines set up. So generally, we do a day installation, 2 days standard training, and then in terms of how you develop the data sources to the other products. So if you're not using a commercial data model, but you want to develop a link over a bespoke system, obviously there's a couple of ways you can go. We can either give you the training on how to do that, and then you can go away and do that yourself, or we can do it for you as an interactive exercise. So maybe if there's we can build a starter data model for you. So again, we don't depend. We can either do the whole thing, or maybe there's just certain areas of that system you need to access immediately. Maybe you just need to access the invoices table and the credit notes and the policy documents for insurance or something like this, or contracts or whatever it is. So maybe there's just like 3 or 4 areas of that system you'd like to be able to access straight away. So we can build that for you and give you the training on how to extend that yourself over time. So it really varies depending on the complexity of the custom data link to be developed, but generally we take a pragmatic approach, and as I say, it's often better to start off with something small and then train the customer on how to extend that themselves. So 2 days, so 1 day installation, 2 days standard training, 3 to 4 days maybe just building an initial data model or helping the customer build an initial data model, and then another day or so training them on how to extend that themselves. So depending on the complexity and the number of data sources to be developed, it can vary, but hopefully that gives you a rough idea.
Thanks, Richard. Just a couple more questions from Ilse. The first one, on the right back, can you use the web channel? Can you use the web channel to, for example, submit numbers online? And then with this, back to the upload with budgets and bank balances. So would this be on the live system?
Right. So another great question. So the write back functionality, as you rightly picked up, can be used from the web channel as well. So again, something that this is useful for is I don't know. Let's say there's there's a budget upload sheet or something, but you can basically publish that to the web, or you can create a form inside the browser where maybe because only certain project managers need to enter budgets for a certain project or something like that. So you could create an upload sheet that's filtered by the project manager, and then each division or each project manager, whatever it is, can enter their numbers online in a form, and then when that's submitted, that writes the numbers back into a budget ledger within the finance system. Or it could be, we often use it as well. Sometimes, we use it for things like mapping tables, because maybe you're pulling information out of some systems, but it needs to be slightly reformatted to go into a different system, or maybe there's slight differences in between the way in which that finance system is implemented in different countries. You maybe need to remap some data on the fly, and the definition of that mapping is held in a mapping table, so you can store that mapping table in a custom table in Sharperlight, but you can allow people to update the mapping table via the browser, so we do a write back over a custom table. So the first part of the question, definitely we can write back to a data source from within the browser. And what was the second part of the question, Emma? It was something to do with live systems, was it? Or?
Yeah, just wondering if the budgets, bank balances, and that if they would have to be on the live system, or if you can use the online web channel. I think that was to submit numbers online, or just to clarify how it works.
Yeah, I mean we would. So basically, if depending on who needs to have access to that, you'd want it to go, well, budgets would obviously go into a budget ledger, but you can set security on who has the ability to write back to a product in the first place. You can actually limit who has the ability to write information back, and you can also set security on different tables. So even if somebody has write back permissions in general, it doesn't mean they're going to be able to write back onto every area of the system. So we basically can control to a pretty high level of detail exactly who can write back and to where.
Okay, thanks. And Ilse would also like to know, Richard, if you can have formulae, Excel type, for example, to do calculations on Sharperlight, or would you have to build various queries and then combine and calculate in Excel?
No, that's a great question as well. So what we would do on that is, one of the things you often see in Excel reporting is, you've got all of these sort of lookup formulas, or maybe people are doing like a base extract of information, and then they're slicing and dicing it in Excel. Really, what we want to try and get away from all of that in Sharperlight. So we use a thing called expressions in Sharperlight. So this could be to do things like calculated columns. So you could basically take for any current row. So let's say you wanted to have like a base amount, but then you wanted to multiply the base amount by 10 by 1,000. That's just a basic example. You want to perform some kind of function on there. You can do that very easily. So we would do that as an expression. So let's just say base amounts, star 10. What is that? What is it? 1,000? I think it was. Yeah. So you can see there very, very quickly. You can do calculations or expressions on information as that comes out. So that can be simple mathematical calculations, but you can also do things like date time. You can reformat things. You can basically do text-based operations, so you can reformat the text, or you can basically look for a specific phrase in the text and then do something with it based on whatever you find. You can actually take actually use things like conditional formatting and emailing. So based on a value that comes out in the amount, fire off an email if it meets a certain set of criteria. All of those kinds of things. So generally, we can use expressions to cover things like calculated columns. You can also do things like filtered columns. We have what we call dynamic output and filtered columns. So pretty much anything where normally you'd have to output the data and then do something else with it in Excel, either via a lookup or a like some kind of remapping or some kind of additional calculation. 99% of the cases that I've come across, we can do something within the query builder itself to deal with that. So that means it's dynamically done in the query, and you don't have to have all of this other data lying around in Excel, which is potentially prone to somebody deleting it over typing a formula or whatever. So short answer is yes, but obviously the long answer is we need to take a look at the specifics. But generally we can do quite a lot quite a lot with it before it before it even gets put into Excel. So if we need to do calculations or functions based on the data that's being extracted, we can do that on the fly before we drop it into Excel.
Thanks, Richard. No more questions at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my and Emma's contact details up here on the screen for a few moments. So if you do have any other questions, something else comes to mind later, I'll send you a copy of the slides, obviously. But if you want to speak to me or Emma about anything you've seen this afternoon, or you have any other questions, then definitely please either give us a ring or drop us an email at these email addresses. Okay, well, thank you again very much for coming this afternoon. Hopefully you found it useful. And as I say, we will be running more specific webinars on Sharperlight in the coming weeks. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.